time to pivot a little bit, and we'll talk about what happened at Crap Dragon. At least that's the new nickname anyway, when it rains. The start of hour number 2, that means that Bart Keeler comes in. Not as late. Your Arsenal mug. Yes.
Because Arsenal is what? Top of the table.
I believe they are what's referred to as top of the table, sir.
Top of the table.
I mean, all right. So I know that we're going to talk. I was going to try to have this part of the discussion toward the end of your segment because that'll lead us into Prem and Proper. But since you're with your Arsenal mug, I'll go ahead and flip my rundown a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, dude, you're the one that showed your coffee mug. When you look at the 3 teams at the top, now I need you to put your coffee mug to the side a little bit. When you look at the 3 teams that are at the top of the table, I know that the sprint is going to be a fun one for those of us that are not engaged with any of the 3 sides at the top of the table, Manchester City, Liverpool, and your Arsenal and your Gunners, you being a Gunner. What do you think these final 10 matches are going to be like in the run-in? How crazy do you think it's going to get?
Well, first off, Kyle Walker should have got a red card, and I think Ake should have got a red card, so they could have been suspended for the next match in the Premier League, which is the match that they would have played Arsenal. That said, I think this is going to be a real test for all 3 teams in different ways because Man City, look, we know that they're a juggernaut, they're a machine, and they're at that point in the season where they are starting to ramp up and get points. Mm-hmm. However, Man City is at that point where winning the league is not enough. Winning the Champions League is not enough. And is that pursuit of everything going to cost them? Mm-hmm. Liverpool is in a different position because obviously they're playing one with about 27 kids under the age of 20.
I know.
But they're playing for a manager who, is loved, revered by not just the players in there, but the club as a whole. And then Arsenal is in a different space because we are chasing a title. We're chasing a league title, something that we feel fell out of our hands on our own accord last year. And it was. And this is a much different team seems to be a much different mindset where, we are resurgent at this point in time. We still probably could have scored more goals on Saturday than we did, than we ended up doing. But, and obviously gifting Brentford a goal was not great, but all 3 of them are in different mindsets. And I'm just wondering which mindset wins out, because for City, I know the relentless pursuit of excellence can be taxing, but Pep has tried this before and has been successful at it. I'm just wondering at what point do they run out of mental and physical juices?
All right. So since you mentioned it, I guess we'll go ahead and blend your Prem and Proper with your reffing down here. I know that you mentioned Kyle Walker, and I know that you mentioned Nathan Ake. I know that there was the late discussion about Jeremy Doku and what happened there in the no call. So you look like you might have had a busy day with reffing down here with that particular match that ended up 1-1.
Yeah. So I think when I was watching it live, specifically, Kyle Walker should have got a yellow card in the first half because he had 2 fouls of the very same type where he basically just comes in and cleans out a player, knowing that, and the commentary team did a good job of kind of pointing out how the referee, Michael Oliver, should have interpreted this differently. In that Kyle Walker both times did the same exact type of foul where a player gets the ball around the midfield line and he just comes in and, the commentary team said, he's trying to win it or clear the player out. And I'm like, he wasn't really trying to win the ball. He was trying to clear the player out. And he did it 2 times in the first half. First one was, a warning. The second time probably should have been a yellow card. That's one of those things that as a referee, you need to be aware of for sure, is understanding the mindset of the player in that situation where it wasn't just a careless foul. That was reckless. That was intentional. And it's not quite stopping a promising attack, but it is stopping a player from trying to make an attack. And you do that a couple times, you should be yellow carded, especially in the same half.
All right. So then let me ask you this. Now this is where it blends into reffing down here. When it comes to navigating a match that is as important as that one is, and you don't want to let cards and or behavior take away from the match in and of itself, because I know that there are those mindsets of, because of how important this match is, you don't want to, unless it's completely and totally egregious and you feel like you have to do it, you want to try to have the match decided on the field 11v11 instead of taking players off or repetitious acts.
No, and that's obviously what you don't want to have to do that. But again, you just said the key words. You want the players to decide it. Well, again, going back to the Walker incidents, he's decided he wants to play that way. And so your job as a referee is to make sure that that is not then unfair to the opponents, right? Him being able to just step on people without real consequence is unfair to the opponents.
Right.
Now, I don't think he had too many other instances of that throughout the game, but it's just one of those cases of, yes, you want the players on the field to determine it, but their actions also have to determine how you manage the game. But yeah, you don't want to be sending people off, but also it's just a regular league game. Sorry, it is. It's not like this is a tournament final. This is a league game. You can't really look at it that much differently than you would, Burnley versus who'd they play this weekend? Whoever they played this weekend.
It's West Ham.
West Ham, right? Yeah, the Battle of the Clarets. You can't just look at that and go, oh, well, that doesn't need to be refereed different. I mean, yes, you understand that like you're dealing with players who are obviously of a higher caliber than those on Burnley. No offense, but it doesn't, like, it's not a championship final, right? Like that's you still have to remember that this is a regular all league game.
And you mentioned, teams at the lower end of the table. And you now have it started really with Chris Wilder at Sheffield United, where he was complaining, and apparently there was an incident a couple of weeks ago where he went in to try to have a discussion with the officials. And my first thought was, okay, why are you even going into the room to have this discussion, or wherever they are? And one of the refs was having a sandwich, and while Wilder's trying to speak his piece, and it's like, bro, the match is over. Let him eat.
Yeah.
And so it started with Sheffield United and Chris Wilder. The world's against us, and I'm already being told that that the refs are sitting there and they're managing for next year. Nuno Espirito Santo for Nottingham Forest questioned, and this is from our friends at the Times. Nuno questioned whether there is a conspiracy to relegate Nottingham Forest as he hit out against declining standards for refereeing in the top flight.
Yeah, I think the conspiracy is Nottingham Forest not playing well.
You would think. Yeah, I know. So he says, Nuno was incensed that Craig Pawson, the VAR, did not send Michael Salisbury, the referee, to the pitch side monitor and recommend a red card for a second half challenge on Nico Williams. So Nuno says, quote, "Week after week, someone wants to put us down. Why always us? What's going on? I arrived in England 6 or 7 years ago," and this is when he was at Wolves and bored us to death. He said, "The referees were amazing. I understand that suddenly they lost a group of very strong and experienced players, and now new referees are coming, and they need time and sympathy to become better, but we don't have the time as we are trying to stay in the top flight."
Don't concede 50 goals. So I'm like, I understand a little bit what he's saying. And yes, like it does take time for top flight referees to be top flight. And as you transition new referees in, it's going to take a while for them to be fully comfortable in the Premier League. Right. But your options are a 70-year-old, referee who barely can keep up with the pace of play, or a young guy who can keep up with the pace of play, but needs to understand and learn a little bit more how to deal with the top flight players. But I don't have any sympathy for Nottingham Forest because, one, you've done every single American you brought into that club wrong. So sorry. Two, you've given up 50 goals this year. There's your solution, Don't and I know that's not all his fault because they started off y'all have given up 50 goals this year. If you want to look at any single human whose fault it is for you not being in a better position, y'all have given up 50 goals. That's you. And you've spent $1 bajillion and you're about to get slapped with financial fair play penalties because y'all have just decided to play, I don't know, it's not even Monopoly at this point. You're just wheeling and dealing for the heck of it, and you're not getting any result. That is a you problem. And this is the problem we have with referees overall is people want to blame the referees for y'all not being good. You're not a good soccer team. That is not the referee's fault. That's not the referee's fault that you can't score goals, that you give up goals, even though you kick out Matt Turner because he's terrible, apparently. You bring in a new guy and you still lost 4 in a row. That is not the referee's fault. Okay. It's not the referee's fault that y'all lose. Okay. It's not the referee's fault that you can't string together more than 2 draws in a row, not even 2 wins in a row. That's not the referee's fault. You can blame them all you want, but at the end of the day, y'all aren't creating enough good chances and you're giving up crappy goals. You look like Atlanta United defending under Gonzalo Pineda sometimes.
Blending his shots this morning. All right, so since we're in reffing down here, let me bring it back to Major League Soccer. Sporting Kansas City and LAFC. We saw something very, very rare, and it was intriguing to see it actually happen. It was the indirect free kick inside the 18 because Tim Melia did an So break this one down.
Well, I mean, he did an Sporting had a free kick that it was a free kick, I think, that they kicked back to Melia. And he, not only did he touch the ball a couple of times with his feet, he dribbled. As soon as the LA player came toward him, he picked it up.
Yep.
That is not allowed. That is a indirect free kick. That is that's pretty standard. You cannot pick the ball up when it is passed directly back to you from a teammate. And that was about as direct of a back pass and about as obvious of a direct back pass as you're going to get. Even if it comes off of a free kick, you can't do that. I thought this is another example of players like, why are you, the reaction the Sporting Kansas City players had to the referee having the audacity to literally apply the laws of the game that every single person out watching this game was like, that's not right. And so this is where, like, again, you're crowding and swarming the referee over something that is absolutely an infringement to the laws of the game. You cannot, as a goalkeeper, pick the ball up when it has been directly passed back to you. This has been in the laws of the game since before I was born, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember the exact time that this particular thing came, but because you used to be able to do that. But like, what was the complaint, John?
That would be the $1 million question here. Basically, you did something you ain't supposed to do. But now let me ask you this: within the context of what we're seeing these days with replacement officials, even though we know that the VAR is the mighty and powerful Oz back behind the curtain.
That conspiracy theory is going around. It's fun.
So my guess is, and this is something that you may experience, one way or the other when it comes to these kinds of things. Intimidating, and I don't mean this in the sense of intimidating, but crowding an official, crowding someone who is new at their job in a relative sense, and I think that that's part of it, where you want to try and influence a decision by, hey, if I get me and my guys and we crowd center ref,
they want to bully the new kid. Absolutely,
right.
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bully the new kid, and I think Sporting Kansas City should absolutely be fined for this because it was atrocious behavior. This is stupid. Y'all did something like this. Isn't even one of those like questionable offenses. This is a clear, cut and dry, black and white thing that happened, and y'all are trying to bully the new kid. So I hate to stick up for the scab refs, but like this is a no duh. This is on like, what were we doing here, Kansas City? Get back and defend and get in your wall, because you were lucky to not concede because that ball didn't go far past your post on the free kick.
And that was kind of what I was thinking, that in these situations, you're seeing and I think that you've probably phrased it as best as it possibly could. You're trying to bully the new kid into changing his mind on something that literally is the laws of the game. And, I think that we're seeing this a lot in the first 4 match weeks in Major League Soccer, where you're trying to have these experienced athletes trying to crowd these referees to have them to try and influence a decision. And I understand the gamesmanship that's involved in this. You want to try to game the system to try to, get things back in your favor. But something like this that happened in Los Angeles, to me, it's like, there should be just a point where you sit there and it's like, look, come on. That one is so obvious that you shouldn't even do it, but you're still going to do it anyway because you want to try to game the system.
And look, this is something that is going on throughout professional soccer everywhere, is this crowding the referee. Arsenal did it on the weekend, and it's not behavior we should allow it to keep happening, because it's going. One, it absolutely can affect to some extent the referee's ability to do their job, right? If anything, it's getting in the way of the referee managing the game. It may not get in the way of him making correct calls or not, but it's getting in the way of their ability to manage the game and keep the game at the level that it needs to be for a professional environment. But it's also just like, that's not your job, right? And that's where, I could see, and I think we kind of saw this with some new law changes of the captain a captain having to wear an armband type thing, where we may be shifting toward the captain's the only player allowed to talk to the referee. And that, I believe, used to be a thing. I haven't really refereed like that in a very, very long time. Someone older than me can speak to that. I don't remember, but it wouldn't surprise me for getting back to that, because at this point it's become, every time the referee blows his whistle, it seems like we have to crowd the referee and tell him that he's wrong, when the fact is, fouls happen, right? Like, whether you like to believe it or not, you foul people. This is the same speech that I want to give every U10 parent is, I know your baby angel boy has never done anything wrong in his life, but he did still kick this player.
And when it comes to you having to, I think for you, it's more handling parents than it actually is handling athletes in a situation like this, where
adults ruin youth sports. Yes.
Yeah. So you're having to focus on the adults that are the ones that are yelling at you.
But even still, I mean, kids do it. I mean, I gave a yellow card to a kid this weekend because he felt the need to just scream at me.
Whoa.
He didn't say anything particularly wrong. He just hauled off and screamed at me. And I was like, you don't get to just yell at a referee like that. And I gave him a yellow card, and his coach was even to his coach's credit, he was supportive of me, because he was like, what? You can't do that. He was 12, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? You don't get to do this.
Wow.
And I let him get away with one. And the second time I was like, no, we're not doing that. I'll and that's the thing, is, as a referee, you have to understand what are the times where controversy is gonna happen, and you can allow players to vent their frustration, right? Because they're frustrated, they're obviously taking it out on you, even though they're really mad at their player for doing a stupid thing inside the penalty area. But there's also a line, and I think in the Kansas City game, if I was a referee, I probably should have been giving out some yellow cards to some Kansas City players, because it's one of those where this is not really a contestable call. This is, he did a bad thing. Not even a bad thing. Like, it's a bad thing in the sense that you're not allowed to do it. But it's not like he killed somebody. He picked up the ball when he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah. I know that you and Maddie went over the 5 new changes, the next edition of the laws of the game, which is coming out in July. Permanent concussion subs competition option in accordance with necessary protocol, player and player equipment. You've got to have the team captain wearing the armband. And that was one of the things that it didn't really register to me until you mentioned it. Each team must have a team captain who wears an identifying armband.
Yeah. And so I think when Maddie was talking about this, she brought up the point, I thought this was something that already existed. And the answer is no. That's just an easy way that a lot of competitions have been able to denote the captain, because in real competitions, a captain does actually play a role, right? Especially when you look at last night at the W Gold Cup, you have the 2 captains meet at midfield. They exchange little pennants and they do a coin toss, right? Now granted, at the U13 level, it's whoever happens to be able to be the captain that day who gets to go call the coin toss. And after that, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So I do think that at the youth level, the idea of identifying one captain who's allowed to talk to the referee is probably not great, because I just don't think that the kids at that point in time have the interpersonal, intrapersonal, and communication skills to be able to handle a talk with the referee necessarily. So maybe that's only the coaches are allowed to talk to the referee like that, just because, look, they're great kids, but some of these, they're not going to be able to have a conversation with me to represent their team to fully express like what they're upset about, But I do think this is something at the higher levels that we may be seeing a shifting. Now, I don't know for sure. This is just me speculating, but I do know that this is something that we've utilized in the past. And given the prevalence of referee crowding and trying to bully the referee, it wouldn't shock me if we're getting to that point.
Yeah, and I mean, have you ever just gotten to the point where you turned into a blackjack dealer? Because I know that's not in your DNA, but I mean, when you get to or have any of your friends been just like, all right, look, I've had it, bang, bang,
Yeah.
bang.
I'm more likely to do it with coaches.
Yeah.
Who are yelling than I am with kids. Usually with the kids, I just ignore them, and that kind of helps a little bit, or I'll just talk to one player and not all of them.
Right.
So, the rest of them kind of go away, and I just kind of get on with my job personally. But again, I'm not dealing with players being paid multi-millions of dollars to play the sport. I can't advise, some of these, especially these replacement refs, how to deal with Messi per se.
Yes. All right. So there's one other ref topic that I'm going to hang to the end since we've already done reffing down here for the week. Crap Dragon, otherwise known as Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego last night. It was an 8:15 kick, so it was a decent time for those of us on the East Coast to watch things on Paramount Plus. Yeah. It ends up with a really competitive first half. Lindsey Horan got great positioning, got the header past the keeper, made it 1-0, and that stuck.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this was, if you're the U.S., you probably were a little concerned with how easily we conceded possession in our defensive third, but you also have to be really happy about how easily we won back from Brazil possession in our attacking third and their defensive third. At the end of the day, this was a good final for the first edition of this type of the W Gold Cup. And to have, your two reigning continental champions play a pretty contested, close match is good. And it was entertaining. Both teams had opportunities. Luckily, the U.S. made the most of one of theirs. We didn't create a whole lot. That was probably a little concerning, but we got the goal. Lindsey Horan, the captain, heads it home. And, you're looking at hopefully the first of a couple of titles for the U.S. this year.
I think in the final three matches, you beat Colombia, Canada, and Brazil to win the W Gold Cup. Taking the tournament in its completed nature, those last three matches after the loss, then you take those three wins. I guess how different are you looking at things? I guess from the loss backward and then the three wins forward. I guess can you put a line there, or are you taking the whole experience and blending it all together and taking it as lessons learned as you go?
No, I think you have to look at it as a holistic tournament to learn the lessons that you need to learn, because I think the lesson is don't take teams for granted. Don't think you can rest on your laurels of just being talented, because that's what we learned against Mexico, and then we had to apply that against Colombia, against Canada, and against Brazil. I think that it's still the case that there's a line of demarcation in the women's game where you have good teams and you have teams who play soccer, and then you have bad teams. And the U.S. encountered a couple of the teams farther down the list, with Argentina and Dominican Republic. Nothing against them. It's just there's still that very hard line that is unfortunately farther up the table, if you will, than in the men's game. But when you played the three of the four good teams you played, you beat them. And the one team that you didn't beat, it was because you had a bad lineup, bad tactics, and a passive mentality. Well, if you fix those three things, you're going to win. And that's what we saw against Colombia, Canada, and Brazil. But congratulations for Mexico. They won their trophy of beating the U.S. So congrats.
Now, there was a point that was made where our substitute teacher for the tournament, Twyla Kilgore, had two playmakers in the midfield to work your way through as opposed to just one previously, to kind of get things orchestrated through the middle. And then it's like you feed to the center of the hourglass, and then you're able to work your way out and you have better options to the left and to the right.
Yeah.
What did you take? Was that one of your contributing factors, that switch to having that double pivot in the middle and then working into the hourglass and working back out, as opposed to having one where folks can collapse on that one playmaker?
So I think we did learn that the U.S., at least in this edition, this form, works better with a double pivot. Yes. I think it also helps when you have Sam Coffey and Corbin Albert, two players who, by the way, both played phenomenally this tournament. Corbin started every match that the U.S. won, so take that for what you will. Yeah. Sam Coffey, a similar type of like, oh yeah, she played, so we looked good. Jaden Shaw also in that category, by the way, even though she didn't start the final, and then a little concerned about that. But anyway, yeah, I think that was one of the big takeaways. If you're Twyla, looking forward, and then something you can physically give to Emma and say, hey, we learned this. And I think it is that the Corbin Sam midfield works. And to be fair, that's also not a bad midfield pairing to try, because you have an Andy Sullivan and Emily Sonnet as well who can play that. And I think that was one of the things that we saw with Andy Sullivan, is she can't do that job alone, even though Vlatko consistently tried to do that over and over again. It was very clear that once you put a partner with her in midfield, she was pretty effective. And so I think that's the big takeaway. The other takeaway, and I'm sorry, but we just need to hit it, is that Lavelle and Horan don't work together in the midfield. It was a little bit better against Brazil, but you had Lavelle playing mostly as like a left-ish inverted winger. And I think I still think Jaden Shaw performed that particular role a little bit better. But that's going to be something as we go forward, is, Lavelle and Horan don't work together in the midfield. And it just is the unfortunate nature of having two of the most talented players at that attacking midfield position. We can't put them both on the same field at the same time.
Well, what I always like to do in these situations when we're coming out of matches and tournaments and such is go over the numbers from our friends at Soccer America that usually drive you crazy because of the systems that they use and the opinions that they have. Theodore Lloyd Hughes is the one responsible for this go-round, and he gave Alyssa Nair a 5.
In this game?
Yeah.
Or the whole tournament?
This game. Legendary heroics, given a much-needed night off against Brazil, according to the stats.
Oh, okay, fine. I mean, if it's because she didn't do anything, then fine. But I was
peppered shot. Peppered shots from around the box, but failed to find the frame. A solid two-handed grab at the near post from a Yasmin crossed free kick, unleashed a loud roar from the crowd in the 69th.
I think she deserves a 10 because it still carries over all the points that she got from last game. Like she got 100 in that game. So
no doubt
it carries. I do want to say, John, I don't know if you saw this stat, but of the 5 finals that Alyssa Nair has played in, she has 5 shutouts. So that is a cool stat. And that's, those aren't just, all CONCACAF tournaments. She does have a clean sheet in a World Cup final. So that's something.
Yep. Starting lineups, TLH gave Dunn and Davidson 6s, Naomi Gierma and Emily Fox 7s at the back. Because, yeah, I mean, it's, it's like third match in succession, started the 2 Stanford alums as your central defenders. Defensive change was Crystal Dunn replacing Jenna Neiswanger at left back.
And I think the Davidson Gierma pairing probably is what you're going to be seeing most going forward. I still would have liked to have seen Alana Cook, because I think Davidson and Cook both have the ability to make you gasp every time a lot of times throughout the game, they kind of have their whoopsies on occasion, but the back line was pretty solid.
Can we talk about the dime that Emily Fox dropped on the header for Lindsey Horan?
Let me take a swig of my Arsenal mug. As the Arsenal player gets an assist in the final, yeah. No, and that's the thing that I think, again, Twyla can hand off to Emma, is if you can create a back 3-ish, right, or create a situation where Emily Fox is free to roam up that right side, you're going to find a lot of success.
You mentioned the relationships that aren't quite working. He gave Coffey and Horan 7s, Corbin Albert he gave a 6, but he also gave Alex Morgan and Rose Lavelle 4s on the night.
Well, that's really harsh to Alex Morgan, because I think Alex, throughout this tournament, it's very clear that she's still the best option at striker. And I fully put my hand up and say I was wrong about this, saying we need to move on from her, because she does allow a lot of offense to flow through her. Now, I'll admit this was not her best night, but it's not like Soph was that much better. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think Rose isn't playing necessarily her best position, so a 4 is fine. I mean, she was asked to do some things she's not fully used to. She's not really a winger. Her pace isn't going to be used there. She doesn't really have that. So, I get that. But I think that's a little harsh for Alex Morgan.
Yep, 6 for Trinity Rodman, and then your subs got 5s and 6s. Lynn Williams, Casey Kruger got 6s. Sophia Smith, Jaden Shaw, Midge Purse got 5s. So after her goal in the match yesterday, Lindsay Horan has had a goal involvement in 4 of the 5 competitive finals that she has appeared in, 3 goals and an assist. Yeah. After last night, the WNTs won 10 consecutive finals appearances in a row that it has competed in. The last finals defeat was when?
2011 to Japan in the World Cup final over in Germany on a penalty kick shootout. So,
ding, ding, ding. You got it.
Which again, John, I'm just going to hit people. Yes, it's okay to expect greatness and to expect us to win, but that is an unreal stat. Again, you're talking about a team that made 3 World Cup finals in a row, won 2 of them.
Yep.
That is, that alone is greatness. Like, we look at the Spain men's squad that won, World Cup Euro, and consider them one of the greatest teams ever. We're not looking at Spain now going, oh my gosh, why aren't they at that level? You understand their peaks and valleys. And right now, the U.S., unfortunately, especially in 2023, was in a little bit of a valley. The goal is to now get back up to the peak. That doesn't mean you accept the loss, but that's just another stat of like, we're still insanely good. Mm-hmm. And we unfortunately had a bad 2023 tournament because we had a coach with inflexible tactics and a player pool that wasn't really fit to deploy those tactics. Also, Alyssa Nair saved that penalty kick.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so now we're going to do the blending and the handoff because Drew has found a conference room that works. All right, so we got the chance to discuss what's been going on with his beloved Arsenal. We're going to catch up with Drew here and find out about Manchester United and the rest of the week in the Prem. But, Bart, I wanted to discuss before you go, when was the last time you got your cards mixed up?
I don't know, John. Like, honestly, it happened yesterday, though. I usually keep my yellow card in my front right short pocket because that's my dominant hand, and I keep my red card in my right chest pocket so that I have to think about going to it, right? And I guess I just switched them when I put them in my pockets on Saturday or on Sunday morning. And the girl had 3 fouls in the first half, all of them really late. And I was, it's like, can't do that. I had already warned her. And so I go to pull out the card and I'm like holding it up like, oh, no, that's not it. Here you go. And immediately switched them back. So it happens.
No, absolutely. And so Emilio's asking, Emilio says he supports blackjack dealing in professional soccer matches. He says crowding drives crazy.
I will say, luckily, we didn't have many controversial things in the Atlanta United New England match. I know that the one controversial moment ended up being okay, so I think we're going to all forget it. But, I think the referee wasn't incorrect to blow the play dead when the ball hit Gigi lying on the ground in front of the goal.
Yeah. Can you drop 3 yellows in 5 minutes without repercussion? Can you do that?
Well, like, in theory, yes.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, though, we might be needing a red card.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So when's the next Soccer for USPod?
Hopefully recording tonight or tomorrow night, depending on when our schedules align. And then so you'll get that on Friday. Also, U.S. men's national team roster jumping this week. So we'll be talking about that next week in preparation for Nations League. So, yeah, real quick plug if I can, John. For those of you who don't know, I am playing in the Soccer in the Streets charity tournament called the ATL Champions League. I am playing on Team America because we are playing as the old NASL Team America team. But if you feel like you're generous, please go find someone who's playing in this team as well. Abby's son is playing, and donate to their fundraising page and help Soccer in the Streets provide free soccer programming to all kids in Atlanta. So
what he said. All right, Bart, thanks again. We'll catch up soon, my friend.